Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss a reported interview with an economist who has worked for the Bank of England in the past and a man who was very vocal about the damage that Brexit would do to the UK economy some years ago. In his recent interview, he explains that our sustained inflation problem is 80% down to Brexit and breaks down a couple of these specific issues. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So this is really about inflation as it is going to be over the coming years, not just here and now. Adam Posen, who's formerly of the Bank of England, as I say, famously gave a no-nonsense appraisal of Brexit several years ago, and it wasn't good news for those of us trapped on this sheeple-infested plague island. He has now been interviewed more recently, and he claims that Brexit is responsible for 80% of the inflation that we're stuck with at the moment. No, not just the inflation right now, but as it is going to exist over the next few years, and that Brexiteers can forget about a US-UK trade deal. I think, mind you, on that last one, I think even the government have come to that realisation, hence the big push for a trade deal with India. The US trade deal was the prize for a couple of reasons. First, obviously, the US has the largest economy in the world. In theory, if you can negotiate even slightly easier access into their markets, it can translate into a decent boost to GDP for a much smaller economy. Problem is, I don't think the US, even under the orange one, was ever up for agreeing to even a small amount of enhanced market access. The trade deal proposal from the US was all one way, making it easier for them to sell to us with no reciprocal arrangements. Second, the US do not have a free trade agreement with the EU. So whenever the UK have agreed a post-Brexit trade deal, whenever Liz Truss has gone, oh look, I've got this trade deal now, they've always said, how much better it is. We couldn't have got this from the EU. And people would say, but hang on a minute, this isn't as good as the one the EU have. Because it wasn't true, you see. Even the government's own official economic impact assessments say that the trade deals we're getting are basically worthless. And that they're worth less than the ones the EU have with those countries. But they also know that most voters don't check the facts. So they listen to what they report in the media. The media don't fact check for them, so that's what people think. Oh, it's a great deal. But it's a much easier lie to sell if the trade deal you've agreed doesn't have an equivalent with the EU. Because then arseholes like me can't compare it side by side. So by getting a US trade deal, they could claim that they'll have succeeded where the EU can't. The fact that this would only come about because we'd be accepting all of their terms and not demanding any of our own is neither here nor there. It's all about the headlines. But apparently even bending over backwards for the US trade negotiators isn't working. And of course, we also know, and Posen cited this as well, there is the issue of Northern Ireland. Congress will not grant us a trade deal while we keep threatening peace in Northern Ireland. And then actually the US don't want to issue trade deals at all with anyone. Biden said that right from the start of his presidency. So Johnson seems to have given up anyway in favour of India. But in terms of the economic impacts of Brexit, I want to point out that when Posen says 80% of our plight is down to Brexit, he's talking about for the medium and long term. Because people may go, inflation is quite high in a lot of countries at the moment, it's not just Britain. Even though it's actually still higher here than it is in comparable economies. But yes, inflation's also highish in a few of those advanced economies as well. But we're the only one that's raised taxes. We're also the only one that's suffering a cost of living crisis like this. I mean, imagine this. Not only are we alone in the G7 in paying more taxes right now, but we still got hit with a rise in the cost of living that those on the lowest incomes cannot afford. We're paying more and getting less. But what are the reasons that Posen cites for this? He points chiefly in the article to problems in getting migrant labour. Now in the UK, along with other countries where large parts of the media were brought up by right-wing moguls, for the purposes of political propaganda of course, we are told that migration is a drain on our economy. One of a whole list of lies about the reality of a complex society. Any advanced economy absolutely depends upon migrant labour. We should be welcoming migrants with open arms. There is not a single advanced economy that is self-sufficient in this way. And when you think about it, the situation is going to get much worse in the UK because we have people having children later in life and more often not at all. This means that our birth rate is falling. We can see it falling. We know how this works out by looking at countries further down that path, like Japan, for example. What do you end up with? You end up with a massive population of retired citizens living longer because of advances in healthy living and medicine, and not enough younger people to power the economy. What do? If you don't inject a large number of migrant workers, you end up having to work your own population like slave dogs. This is the path that Brexit pushes us towards. And even then, we're still going to see a badly declining economy because unlike Japan, we don't value education in this country. Certainly, the Conservatives do not. We're not training our slave dog workers, are we, with the skills needed? So we lose out both ends. Our Brexit policies were conceived by imbeciles. They make no economic sense at all. Posen said that when you run a trade war against yourself, bad things happen. And that is how a lot of people have characterised Brexit, applying economic sanctions to ourselves. And consider that we haven't even applied Brexit properly yet. There are some aspects of government Brexit policy that will surely never come in. For example, switching from the CE to the UKCA quality marks. At the moment on British products you see them side by side. CE, UK, oh, UKCA. Yeah, it's right next to the CE though, isn't it? So the UKCA means nothing. The government keep delaying the implementation where it's got to be the UKCA. Oh, well, we're not having that CE. We're not recognising CE. UKCA or nothing. Reason is they want to keep pretending that we'll have our own mark, but they also know that our industry would collapse if we do. The easiest way to explain this would be to point at the need for machinery. We need machinery in every sector. We can't build all the machines we need because some of them we only need a few. It's not economical to do that. It's not for any country. So we can't produce all the machines we need ourselves or the parts to maintain them. So we import some. Now, if those imports would need a UKCA mark to be legal, which is the government's policy at some point when they can be bothered to implement it, then the supplier has to pay to get that certification for their products. That is a significant cost before they can export it. Now, if they sell a lot of a particular machine or component or whatever to the UK, okay, it's worth their while. They'll make less profit, but they'll still make a profit, so they'll do it. Okay then, fine, no problem. But if they only sell a few, then it's not worth the expense, so they won't bother. All of a sudden, we can't get those parts. That would mean we'd have things like lifts, escalators breaking down with no way of fixing them, scanning machines like x-ray machines in hospitals, be the same thing. Some cars, we just wouldn't be able to get those cars because we don't manufacture the parts for them. So there'll be some cars disappearing off the market. There are lots of machines where we might only have a few of a particular sort in the UK, but we'd soon notice if we couldn't buy or maintain them. Standards checks are also being delayed again. Another government Brexit policy. This one a necessary international legal requirement as well that they've been ignoring so far, but we can't implement it. So as a result of that, we're risking a major animal disease outbreak. We're also not applying proper checks for our customs controls. We've got the customs controls, but not really the checks. That is losing us billions of pounds in import duties as there is little to stop smugglers falsifying their documentation. As well as the problems we now have getting migrant labour, which the government perversely cite as a Brexit benefit when it's actually a Brexit curse. Posen also talked about inward investment. We already know that France has overtaken us now as the main destination for inward foreign investment. He said part of the reason why the IMF says the UK will lag behind in growth compared to other G7 nations is because of our reduced foreign investment. And why have we been losing this? A chaotic hard Brexit that makes it not only more difficult to export to other countries, and not just harder to attract workers with the necessary skills, but also because nobody knows from 1 year to the next what the trading conditions will be. Going back to those standards controls, we were supposed to have them at the start of last year, then it was going to be later last year, then it was going to be this year, then maybe a bit later this year, or later, or never, who knows. But businesses need to know because it makes a difference. Same with everything else that we're not implementing. How can a business come up with a 5-year business plan when it doesn't know from 1 year to the next what the trading conditions are? The trading landscape is constantly changing for the UK, and it is not in a positive way, and it is not in a predictable way. And some of the changes are so unpredictable because the government keeps changing its own timetable for implementing policies. Investing in the UK for a lot of businesses is just incredibly risky right now. And you know what? This is what makes it even sillier. The government keeps citing global pressures when they're trying to cover for Brexit. Oh, there's global pressures, there's issues all over the country, all over the world. Yeah, there are. And do you know what happens? That actually makes it worse with Brexit. Because when you've got a global downturn, you get way fewer risky investments. So there's not as much investment about anyway. So in a situation where there's not as much investment and people want safer investments, Brexit Britain will be the first to lose out every time. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button and maybe click on the join button if you'd be interested in membership. And until next time, I'll see you later.